Okay.
There. Hi, Assalamu alaikum, everyone, once again. My name is Aisha Siddiqui. I'm an EdUSA advisor based in Lahore. We're housed within USEFP, and we are here today with a very interesting session that there's been a lot of demand for. I know we get questions from students every single day about marketing, how to pursue their graduate studies in this field. And for that reason, we have a Fulbrighter with us, Beebrak. We're pleased to have him. He went to Johns Hopkins, which, as you know, is a top institution in the US, and he will be giving you real life insight. We've all heard about the Fulbright. It's currently open right now with a deadline for Feb 28th. But Beebrak is here to kind of explain his lived experience with the scholarship, and he's also open to questions. So, Beebrak, without further ado, I'm just going to hand it over to you. You can introduce yourself thoroughly. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this session.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Aisha. That was a very warm welcome. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. My name is Beebrak, and let's just get started. I'm here to talk about my Fulbright journey and how essentially in a field which is there's a misconception that Fulbright and movement it's very restricted to TEP sector, or that's the preferred choice. And while we understand that there are some specific areas that the Fulbright scholarship is focused more towards, it is a complete misconception that people in the business background are cannot get a Fulbright. So I'm here to debunk those notions and just to talk about how that journey was for me and how that changed my life. Just a second. Yeah. All right. So just a little bit about me, my educational background. I went to Lahore School of Economics here in Pakistan, did my undergrad from there. I also did an exchange program with Berkshire University. And then for my master's, which was an MS in marketing, I went to Johns Hopkins Carey Business School on a Fulbright. I've been working predominantly in the tech startup industry for about more than almost 4 years. One of the notable names is Colabs. I've worked in Tintash and Mesmer, which is a Palo Alto-based company. And for some volunteer work, I've been associated with many organizations, Teach for Pakistan, ISEC, Design for America, Beyond the Classroom, and things like that. But let's just dive right into it. What is the Fulbright experience like? And just to give you a quick snapshot of what does that mean when you go on a Fulbright journey, and what does that entire 1 or 2 years, depending on whichever program and masters that you go on, it is, as we've talked about, it's not just an academic exchange program, it is also a cultural experience. So it not only helps you achieve your academic and professional goals, it is also a once in a lifetime. And I'll elaborate more on why it's called a once in a lifetime opportunity. It is that because that is grad school, or generally school life, college or grad school, it is a bubble, right? And wherever you go in your to pursue those programs, it is an experience that has potential to change your life, because you meet certain people who will have direct effects or indirect effects on your career goals, on your personal growth, on your experiences as a human being. And Fulbright is unique is because you go on this trip with a select group of people from your own home country. You are already connected before you go to the US. That entire cohort becomes your family. And my particular cohort was pretty cool in the way that we already had a Facebook group back when people used Facebook a lot. This is 2017 I'm talking about. So through the application process, and I will talk about the application process as well. We connected through each other. Some people took the initiative, and we made a Facebook group. Everybody was constantly keeping tabs throughout the process, from the interview to the visa stage to the bookings to, let's say, even housing. If I knew somebody who was going somewhere else, and I knew they could, and I knew somebody already in the US, we were constantly keeping in touch with each other. And that was great. But then once you land in the US, you are not surrounded by your cohort. For example, I went to Johns Hopkins, which was in Baltimore. Only one other Fulbrighter was there. And then in my business school campus, there was only one other Pakistani. But we traveled a lot and फिर हम वो cohort हमारे साथ ही था. But then also it was just such a wonderful academic and cultural exchange for me because I met people who actually changed my life. Just to give you a visual of what that was like, I traveled to about 18 states within that 1 year. Any break, any Christmas, Thanksgiving, semester break, I was just traveling. And that is why, because I had saved up money, I knew that this is an experience and I just wanted to experience everything on my own. So whether it was spending Christmas in New York or attending a Coldplay concert or going to Disney or Universal Studios, that was my goal. I wanted to be there, do it all, and just check things off my bucket list. But more than that, let's talk about the academic and the universe. Sorry. If you guys are in Lahore, I don't know how you're surviving the smog. It rained last night, but oh, okay. So when I went to Johns Hopkins, as I mentioned, on an MS program, and the MS programs are generally structured in a way which are very, very hardcore, based on your field of experience and field of study. So an MS program is different from an MBA program, as you call it. It is very, very focused on the sciences part of it. So an MBA program generally makes you a good manager, while an MS program and an MS marketing or MS in data analytics or data sciences will actually talk to you very much about what is it that makes marketing what it is, right? And MBA is more of a generalist program. And the difference is basically on how the courses are structured. You will see a lot of universities are focused on MBA as a flagship versus there are other universities that focus on MS programs as their flagship. And the whole concept of a flagship program is what their specialty is and what they want to be known for. Specifically in MS and marketing, the courses that you study are all centered around topics like consumer behavior, market analytics, market research. There's a few different finance courses around it. Obviously, oh, just by the way, house rules, I would request you guys to just keep putting in questions if you want. And put those questions in the chat box. Aisha here will be going through those questions and we'll be taking those questions in the end. So none of your questions are going to be missed. But in the interest of saving time, we might, Aisha will be moderating those questions and we'll be taking those questions at the end of the session. But yeah, so feel free to shoot any questions that you have at this point. Yeah, but coming back to the MS program, my program was a 1-year program. And let's just get rid of this slide. My program was a 1-year MS marketing program. It was structured in a way where it had 3 semesters. And the first 2 semesters, the fall and the spring semesters were further broken down into modules. So we had fall 1, fall 2, spring 1, spring 2, and summer modules. Now, what the module was like, it was 8 weeks. One module was 8 weeks. We had roughly about 4 to 5 courses in every module, and hafte mein ek subject ki ek din classes thi. So we had, and that class was for 3 hours. So 1 week, 1 subject, 1 class per week, 3 hours long. And so essentially we had to study and test for a whole course in 24 hours. We, like any other program, there are some very core required courses that MS marketing programs generally have. So consumer behavior is one of them. Marketing, intro to marketing is one of them. Marketing analytics is one of them. And then obviously there are certain electives that you can pick and choose. For example, I took design thinking as one. I took field experiments as another one. So pro tip, and I'll obviously come back to it, is just to understand what is it that you want to do in your future, and then curate those courses according to what your program and requirements are, and then what your personal goals are. Coming back to the Fulbright scholarship, I'm pretty sure most of you who've signed up here know what the Fulbright scholarship is, but this is just what the USEFP website says. It's a graduate program study. I'm really sorry, guys. All right.
Beebrak, you don't need to apologize. I think we are all in the same boat in Lahore right now.
I've been in this boat for I don't know how long. It's just a lingering dry cough, which I don't know why
Yeah.
it's just not going away. It's annoying. But okay. So yeah, everybody knows what the Fulbright program is. It's just a fully funded scholarship for you to pursue your master's or PhD program. It covers everything from tuition to textbooks to living stipends to health insurance to even travel costs, so like a round trip going and coming back. And there's a certain basic eligibility criteria. I think most of the people in Pakistan fall within the eligibility criteria. It's not something that's actively excludes anybody. What the ineligibility criteria are very lofty. So I think very rare is it that somebody will not be eligible for the Fulbright program. The application process is pretty straightforward, and it takes roughly 1 year. When I was applying, my application deadline was in May. I know it's been pushed to February, which was quite surprising for me, by the way, Aisha. I would love to know why it was pushed earlier, if we have the time. Do you want to touch briefly upon it?
We actually have nothing to do with it. The IIE, as you know, the Institute of International Education, they're the ones that make these decisions. So I honestly have no input on this. I mean, I know it is affecting a lot of our students,
Yeah.
and I apologize if there's any way we can help with, with your GRE prep and taking it faster or quicker, let us know.
Yeah. Sure. And please, I would want to touch upon some dates for when, so it's like tentative timelines for when these processes happen. So please feel free to tell me how those have changed. So for example, the online application date when I applied in 2017 was in May. The deadline was in May. And so you had up until May to give the GRE, or you at least had to register. And then there was a grace period of about a month or so after the application deadline where you could take the GRE and then the scores would get submitted. So I think here too, you can get the GRE up until February, the deadline of February, and then maybe a small grace period of about a month or so or a few weeks.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. You can take your GRE until the deadline day, so Feb 28th in this case. And what you do is, because your unofficial scores you get right away, right? So you could include them in your application before you
Right.
submit. And then you could use
There's a
USEFP.
code. Yeah.
Yeah, and they'll just automatically send your GRE scores.
Perfect. And so they cannot take it after the deadline, right?
Yeah, they can't take it after.
All right, because I took mine slightly, I remember slightly later than the actual deadline, and there was a grace period. So if that's not the case anymore, please feel free
No,
to.
yeah.
Okay, so that's not the case anymore, guys. I would recommend for GRE, and we'll move, for further into the presentation, we'll talk about the GRE as well. But I would recommend booking your dates ASAP. They go by like this. I remember when I was signing up for the GRE, I was a little late in signing up for it because I was going through my exams, and there was one particular date for the Prometric Center, the only date that I got, and there were just limited seats on that particular date. And by the time I entered the incorrect credit card details and then it rerouted and refreshed, those dates were gone. So I had to go to Karachi to give my GRE, and luckily I had family there, so that wasn't that big of a problem. But like I said, guys, if you haven't already registered for your GRE, please go now. It's on the ETS website, so ets.org. That's the official website. Please go there. There are centers in Faisalabad, in Islamabad, Rawalpindi, in Lahore, in Karachi. I believe in Quetta as well. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on this, but there you'll know where. And make sure while you're registering, you enter your details correctly as per your CNIC. All right. So once the application goes through, you get an acceptance, and then you are moved on to the interview stage. In my time, that was roughly around, if I remember correctly, August or late July or August. So that's when the interviews happened. Once the interviews are gone through, there are three decisions. You are either a principal candidate, you are an alternate candidate, or you are not considered. A principal candidate is when you are sure you're definitely going. So it's a sure shot win for you. Congratulations, you've got the scholarship. That's for the first step. So the USEFP officially says, okay, this guy or this girl, they're gonna go. An alternate candidate is they liked your profile, but there's somebody who's much, whose profile was more suited. And so in case they drop out, sometimes it happens, people do drop out, then you're considered. It's similar to a university application and a university acceptance. And then, Aisha, can you please touch upon the mode of communication? I know there are a few people who applied and they never got an email, and so the portal. So there are still a few people who I know who never heard back after their application. So is there a rejection email? If not, like what is it? What's a good timeline to understand?
So in terms of timeline, because this year is kind of an anomaly, everything is changing. We don't have a timeline to give out at the moment because the
Okay,
programs department is still working on that.
got it.
So what just apply by Feb 28th, and then they'll let you know what the new timeline they come up with is, when the interviews will be, when you will hear back. Usually a lot of people who don't make it, who are not shortlisted, do not hear back. So
At all.
so because
Okay,
there, honestly, it's logistically quite difficult to do so because there are
sure.
thousands of applications.
Got it.
So my suggestion would be to reach out to the programs department yourself. I will share their email here in the chat box. It's info@usefp.org. So you can send them an email every month or so and ask about the status of your application. Like, keep a
Okay.
tab on it
Is there
yourself.
is there a phone number as well that they can reach out? I know the
There
USCF
is
doesn't have
there
one.
is an Islamabad phone number. If you go to the USEFP website, usefp.org, just
Got
contact the Islamabad office. That's where the programs department is based, and they can transfer you to them. But honestly, email still remains the best mode of communication.
All right.
So it
Thank
might
you.
take you like a day or two to hear back from them, but they do try to respond to everyone. And I'll just share the email here.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. So guys, once the application goes through, then there's the interview process. I'm not going to talk a little bit more about in the interview, but yes, there is an interview. It's pretty great. It happens at the USCFP office. Your trip to the USCFP office in Islamabad is also funded. It was for my time. I'm not sure if that's the case anymore. I think it is, because USCFP is very generous. They really take care of you. And then once you are selected after the interview as you are a principal and alternate candidate, you move on to the third step, which is, I'm sorry, there's a typo over here. It's a 6-step process. I was making these slides at like 9 p.m. at night. So that's the third step, which is the university submission plans. And then the submission plan is essentially, as you guys have mentioned, heard from Aisha, it's the IIE that is actually moderating it. It's the Institute of International Education that in the US that runs this program with every country. So USEFP in Pakistan is the leg that um, manages the Fulbright operations in Pakistan, in addition to other things. And then there's one in the MENA region, there's one in Africa, there's one in Asia, other parts of Asia. So they're all spread out. USCFP is focused on Pakistan. But the IIE is the one that's actually running this program with all of these countries. Aisha, please correct me if I'm wrong. And right? All right, cool. So, and the IIE essentially tells you, all right, your application has been, accepted. These are the universities that your applications will go to. And how that works is while you're filling out your application, you tell them, all right, this is my preferred choice. When I was filling mine out, I talked about my preferred choices were very lofty. They were Columbia, NYU, and then UD Austin, Texas A&M, and then one more. I'm forgetting. But these were some course universities that I felt the programs were very closely aligned to my goals. And then the IIE decided that they usually give you roughly 4 universities with plans that, these are where your applications will be considered. Mine were Vanderbilt, UD Austin, Texas A&M, and University of Georgia. Now you can ask for a reconsideration in any or all of these universities, but the grounds for reconsideration have to be very solid, and they will only be considered if there's a mismatch in academic goals. You can't just say like, hey, I asked for Columbia, you are not letting me apply to Columbia. That's not how it works. The only reason that the IIE will consider a change in a university submission plan is if you can justify that the program learning objectives do not coincide with what your learning goals are for this program. And that happened with my case. Out of the four, I applied for a reconsideration for University of Georgia, and I did not tell them that, hey, change this to this. I just asked them to change that particular program, and then they took that out. And because I, wrote them an email, I justified justified it, and the justification has to be like, I went through the program details. These are the courses that are on there. These do not align with what I have in mind. And then they changed it to Johns Hopkins University, and that's how I ended there. Once the university submissions and then the acceptance from the university happens, that's a course of a few months. So roughly from December, January, February, March, this is the general timeline for university applications. And then my acceptance was very late, and I freaked out because I had two rejections before I actually got an acceptance. So don't panic. Very rarely would you get rejected from all universities. If that happens, and then I hounded my program officer about this question, like, what if I get rejected from all three? Because I'd already gotten two rejections and I wasn't hearing back from the rest of the two. After one of them had interviewed me. But in case you get rejected, Khuda na khasta, from all four, your application is then sent to another university. And then hopefully, 9 out of 10 times you're going to get that. So like, just keep calm and trust the process.
Beebrak, just a quick note. So we just mentioned that I think previously you asked me about hearing back from the programs department. So apparently everyone that applies does get a response back from the programs department. If you don't, if someone slips through the cracks, you can email the email address I've given below. Just
Okay,
wanted
all right.
to suggest that.
All right, cool. Got it.
Thank you.
I think we're on half time almost. I'm going to quickly go through this process, and then I want to open it up to questions because that takes a lot of time. Khair, just about acceptance and visa. There's a pre-departure orientation. That's where you actually meet your entire cohort, and then you're off to the USA, which is party time. Not party like, but yeah. Your application form has these four key elements. I've also been a reviewer for Fulbright for on behalf of USEFP, so I've had the privilege of actually being a reviewer for Fulbright applications, and I've also been an interview panelist for the interviews in the application process. So trust me when I say this, these four things are your absolute major goals. Like, nail these, and then your application is solid. And let's talk about the personal statement. I know a lot of people have, sorry. I know a lot of people have questions about what the personal statement should include. How is it different from how are the two statements different? So let's dive right into it. Your personal statement, to put it very succinctly, has to tell the story about you as a person. Why and what qualities does Beebrak Gurchani have, and what experiences, mostly personal, but even professional experiences, has Beebrak Gurchani had, and how have those experiences changed Beebrak Gurchani to make him an ideal candidate for the Fulbright program? Versus when you talk about the statement of objectives, you have to talk about, why do my goals matter? Okay, so the personal statement is about why me, and then the statement of objectives is about why my particular domain and my career goals make sense for Fulbright to invest some money in me. Okay, so that's just the basic idea. These two statements, or these two essays, work as two sides of the same bigger picture. Is what makes me as an ideal candidate. This is your bread and butter. Like, this is your main playing field on talking to the reviewer on why you should be considered. So my tip for the personal statement versus the statement of objectives is understand. And I'm not going in a lot of detail because there's other workshops that go a lot into detail on why the personal statement, how to write the personal statement and statement of objectives. But to put it very succinctly, think about all the experiences you've had as a life, in your personal capacity, in your professional capacity, in your academic capacity. Think about what those learnings So they could be skills and they could be behavioral traits or personality traits that stood out for you, and then link them to your goals in your career and in your life in general. An example of that was what made my application stand out. I don't know. I mean, I got it, so maybe it did. Was I talked about how my life experiences, because I'm a Baloch, I live in Punjab, I come from a multicultural background, and also like moving from a village background. I mean, I have a village background, and then I was born and raised in Multan, and I moved to Lahore. So all those experiences, and then my university experiences, helped me understand people better. And marketing is a domain that is just an exchange of values between two people if you really, really go into the core of it. It's one person understanding how to fulfill needs of another core group and coming up with a product or a solution for them. And I wanted, and my experiences in the dev sector, working with Teach for Pakistan, working with volunteer work abroad, taught me of how to use those skills, and actually create impact through meaningful interventions, and specifically in education. That's what I wanted to do. So that's like your thesis statement, and then you use your personal statement of objectives to argue why you should be considered. Okay, and then let's talk about GRE and GMAT. So GRE is at the time. I'm sorry, there's a typo over here. The total the total score is 340 and not 350. The GRE you take while you're like at the start of your application, and then once your application is considered, and once you get it after the interview stage, before your university applications are submitted, you're required to take the GMAT as well. And the GMAT is completely paid for by the USEFP. Aisha, is that still the case?
So about the GMAT and the testing requirements, they will this year need to ask the programs department, again, the
Okay.
email I shared, because I think there have been changes to this as well, whether
Okay,
they
got it.
want to take it or not. Yeah.
All right, got it. So I mean, it was my case. Generally for business schools, GMAT is a requirement, which is why I had to take the GMAT, but that was paid for. Um, but yeah, so please, GRE and GMAT, very, very crucial. Somebody asked me what my score was, if I remember correctly. So my score was pretty okay. It was 3 of 15 out of a 340. Aim for anything above a 300. The more, the better. Don't freak out. It's not that difficult. I know people like to say it's very difficult. It's not very difficult. If you've been in, business school, but do study for it. All right. Yeah, so letters of recommendation. Unfortunately, in Pakistan, it is your right as an employee or as a student to request a letter of recommendation from your supervisor or your instructor or your teacher or your manager, whoever. I would, so there are 3 letters of recommendation that you're supposed to submit. You can have it as a mix of 2 instructors, 1 manager, 2 managers, 1 instructor, a good mix of an academic and a professional letter of recommendation, just so that it balances it out. Please do not leave it to the last minute. Hound them, choose them very carefully because these matter, and then hound them for it. Like this has to be done. It is like you'll lose out on good points in the evaluation criteria if this is not submitted, right? So make sure you do that just in time. And then one tip that I really want to leave for you guys is choose your program very carefully. Start researching it. It is November 30th right now, so you have about sorry, you have about 3 months before the application deadline arrives. If you are considering to apply this year, please consider very carefully what university and what degree are you going to apply for. Network, LinkedIn is very easy these days. Talk to people who are pursuing careers that you want to do. If you have no idea what you want to do, maybe wait it out this year, or maybe just start really talking to people. I think people in the professional environment who are already working 2-3 years into their careers already have a good enough idea कि यार मैंने कहाँ जाना है, what's my next career move. So talk to professionals, talk to them like, what did you study? What happened? How was that useful? What should I be doing? Your grad school is a very important card in your career path. Use that very wisely. Try to get into a program that will actually teach you hard skills, and in addition to a degree, because unfortunately or fortunately, the market right now, dynamics have evolved where yes, you can have a university degree, but if it doesn't complement, if it's not complemented by hardcore skills, it is very hard to get into the job market. There are people who are actually disrupting the entire job market with that. So consider your study objectives very, very carefully. What I would recommend is start by talking to people who you think their jobs are cool or their jobs are something that you want to do. Start talking to them, ask them questions about what their academic qualifications are, make a list of them, research those degrees, and then any university that sends you those, like that has those programs listed, go through their every program listed by every university has program guidelines. So it talks about like generally this is what is these are the courses that are included. This is what the study objectives for this particular program are. This is what you learn. Read through them very carefully and then evaluate them. You can back work, you can go the other way around. You can start with university that you want to apply to, look at their programs, and then expand your research. There are category A universities, there are category B universities, and then so on and so forth. Have a good mix of safety schools, so schools that are not very competitive to get into. There's acceptance rate is something you might want to look at. That gives you a good idea of how competitive that particular program is. So you want to have a good mix of safety schools versus top schools. I'm not saying only be pessimistic and put in safety schools, or only be very lofty in your goals and put in very, very competitive schools. Have a good mix. Know what program you're getting into. This is a very, very important decision. And then the second tip that I really want to focus on is have your documents ready. I unfortunately had certain mishaps where HEC was did not want to attest my documents because there was a small typo in my documents. And long process, I had to argue my case, and then they eventually did attest them. But this is a very crucial step. So make sure, like, it wouldn't hurt to even get your documents attested right now. I mean, there's no harm in it. The sooner the better, because unfortunately we live in Pakistan, we don't know what's going on. Institutions are not very professional about things. So make sure you have everything ready. If you're already in your, let's say you're still studying in your 4th year, by the time you submit your application, you will not have your full transcript. Talk to USEFP, what's the best approach for that. I think you can get a transcript which is then attested and verified by the university, and it says that it's not a complete transcript, but it will be provided upon completion of the date. So I would recommend you do that, because I did not receive my official transcript months late until after my graduation. So that is something very crucial. Talk to USEFP and your university about that. And yeah, it's a long process. Just relax, guys. Mental fortitude really works. This is a 1 year long program. The wait and the uncertainty is the worst part. When you're actually application की ख्वारी में mental health नहीं इतनी चाहिए होती जितनी the wait is what requires you to be very strong and be like, you know what, if it's meant to be, it's gonna happen. So yeah, that essentially is my tips, and I think we can go on to questions, Aisha.
Thank you so much, Beebrak. That was really helpful. And like we were discussing before this session started, I mean, being calm and being patient is super important, because even when you get there, things will happen. Like always
Yeah,
expect the
absolutely.
unexpected.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was telling Aisha, guys, there was a particular mishap that happened. I was at the airport and unfortunately I lost my passport. How did that happen? That's another story. But in that moment, I had to keep very calm, because if I had went into a breakdown, I don't know if I would have gotten out of that situation. I was at the airport, I was waiting to board the flight, and I did not have my passport. What happened was, what helped was that I already was in direct contact, and you will be in direct contact with both the IIE and USEFP. So there's a program manager for USEFP that you will be in coordination with, and there's a program manager, quote unquote, or a buddy from the IIE that you will be in direct contact with. Please have good relationships with them. Meet up with them if you can. I met my IIE representative. We actually met up in DC. It was great. But because I was in direct contact with these people, I immediately contacted them and got this mess sorted. And I got saved from deportation, which would have been awful. But that's a very important tip. And Aisha, thank you for reminding me for that.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so let's move on to questions. We have quite a few
Oh,
really, really good ones.
yeah,
Beebrak, first of all, there are a lot of I've gotten a lot of messages praising the presentation and thanking you for doing this.
thank you.
So let's start with this one. Sharjeel asks if you have any tips about the Fulbright interview, because he has interviewed once before and
Okay.
he's not sure where things went wrong. How was your interview experience with the Fulbright committee, and what would you suggest for cracking the interview?
Yeah, I understand the nerves while you're going into the Fulbright interview. It is an intimidating process. It is a big deal. There's a lot on stakes. I'm gonna start with a very cliched answer and be like, just be yourself. When you start overthinking that interview process, it does not work when you're already on edge and when you're nervous. So the one trick that I used to get over my nerves was that I just understood why. I knew very well why, what my motivations were for applying, and specifically in the US, because the Fulbright experience actually, it's a bilateral exchange, right? There's a reason this exchange program exists. USEFP has certain values, and I mean, the Fulbright program has certain values. They want people to study in the US, understand, have an exchange with people in the US, be representatives of the country, learn things, teach things, and then come back in Pakistan and implement those things. That's the main, very general idea of it. You have to understand why your person, so you as a person, and why your goals fit into that overall exchange. So that answer is your key. So just for example, I talked about, like, in addition to my goals, I obviously there are stereotypes and about Pakistan out there, and I just was very honest. Like, I was excited to be representing a country at a global platform. I mean, the US, the institutions in the US, especially grad schools, it's a good mix of people. Um, so that those were one of my motivations. I'm not saying copy my answer, but just understand and know why you're going, and that's just going to help you answer that question.
Thank you. So just going off of that question, there's another one about getting a question that you don't know the answer for. For instance, this student was asked, oh, you want to study AI, but there's no future for that in Pakistan for the next 50 years, and he wasn't able to handle it. So just broadly speaking, if you get a question that you don't know how to handle, what do you think they should do?
I'm not sure what the what the candidate answered. So if I had that question, I would simply answer them by saying that is exactly why I need to study this. I mean, if there is no future, that means that there are not enough people working on it. That would have been my standard answer, is because I understand that developing new technology in a developing country like Pakistan takes a lot of time, but that doesn't mean that resources should not be moved to, like, should not be working on those particular domains. And especially if Pakistan is really behind in the development index. And if it wants to catch up, technologies like AI have the potential to bridge that gap of development. So if there are not enough people in Pakistan focusing on Pakistani problems, and leveraging AI technologies like AI to actually solving Pakistani problems, who's going to do it, right? That would have been my answer. So if you are asked any question where you are not sure about how to answer them, just think about, again, think about the value that the Fulbright journey wants to create. Think about the value proposition that you have. Think about your thesis statement. So my goal is to use my skills as a marketing professional to create impact, even if it's not directly through my profession. Maybe it could be something that I'm doing on the side, but it has to be directly related to your career. So that is your default. Just work around that, and don't rush into answering those questions. Take a breath. You can also be candid, be like, that is a tough question, but this is what my interpretation of that question is. Be very candid. Don't try to act over smart. There are very smart people on the panel.
Thank you. No, yeah, thank you. That's a great answer. And yes, please do think along those lines. I think those are some great tips. Okay, moving on. For marketing and in entrepreneurship programs, what section of the GRE do you think they should concentrate more on? The English section or the math section?
I don't think you should be just focusing on one particular section. I think it should be a balanced approach, especially in the GMAT as well. I think because I was not well prepared for the GMAT, I tanked my quant section because it's very tough in GMAT. But if your overall application works well, my university just required me to take a few remedial pre-semester math, like a course or something. I had to take an assessment. So when you get lucked out, that kind of stuff happens. But my overall, if my overall score in GRE and if you are required to give the GMAT makes sense, then your application is considered. Don't rely heavily on verbal or don't rely heavily on quant. Business programs are all about balance. Business programs generally learn anthropology and sociology and psychology in addition to finance and marketing and HR and like all of those. Business courses are all about balance. You have to portray a holistic picture. So don't focus too much on one or the other. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree, especially for something like marketing. You need to have strong, like both sections need to be strong, right? Not like statistics where you can just focus on math.
Precisely.
Okay, another GRE question. What sources do you recommend for GRE preparation? How did you prepare for the GRE?
Oh, so there are plenty of resources online. You can get a lot of sample questions, even on the ETS website. I wanted to touch upon this. Thank you for this question. When you register for the ETS for the GRE on the ETS website, there are free resources on the ETS website themselves, which I'm assuming they update regularly. And then there's also a software. I think it's called Mind Prep. I'm not sure. There's a software that is actually a simulation of the actual GRE. I think you get about 2 or 3 tries of the software, and it's absolutely free. Download that software. First, if it's 2 or if it's 3, take it once without any preparation. So create that environment in your house. It is a 3-hour long test. Lock yourself in a room. Tell everybody, please, khuda ka waste de matana. Lock yourself in a room, create that environment, take that test for 3 hours consecutively. Like think as if you're actually taking that test. Once you've done it, you'll figure it out. Ki aap kitne pani mein ho. How much do you need? And the Barron's book also has a diagnostic test. When you take Manhattan, Princeton, these are all good publications that have GRE resource materials. You can find them online and you can find them in bookstores. Do not waste money on buying new ones. You can even go to Urdu Bazaar and buy like used ones, and there are always some lying around. Yeah. Someone in your circle will have them. So use them wisely. Take the test without any preparation. Understand what are your strengths and weaknesses. Work on them, focus on them more, and then practice, practice, practice. That's literally it. The more you practice, the more easy it is for you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I completely agree. And the mock suggestion is 100% spot on. Usse sab samajh aa jata hai, and then you can study smart, right? It's about studying smart. So yeah. Okay, Beebrak, let's move on to the next question. So Umar is basically asking, these students who are here right now and the ones who will view this later on, they're getting started with the process.
Okay.
So they're feeling a bit overwhelmed, and they don't know where to start.
Yeah.
Where do you suggest they start from?
The application process,
Yeah.
I would suggest start with the basics. All those fields. So, and especially because now it's all digital. My cohort was the last cohort that filled out the paper-based application process, and then after that, everything got digitized. Um, the application is made in a way where you can save sections as well. You don't have to start and then finish it in one sitting. You can always come back to it. Start with the basics, put in your details. Okay, first step, gather all your documents. Whatever you have, gather them in one place so that you don't have to look for those. And have a pen and paper on the side. Start filling out the application. Jo section nahi samajh aata, take note of that, move on. Move on, move on, move on. Go through the entire application once. Take a printout if you want to. Fill it in with a pencil. And then whatever areas you think you don't know, just seek out help from USEFP, seek help from people in the community. I'm sure people in your circle, there are people who have either filled out the Fulbright application or are actual Fulbright alumni. Reach out, reach out, reach out, reach out. That's my tip. But yeah, don't get overwhelmed. There are some sections that you don't even have to fill, right? The financial section, if you don't think you have any money to contribute, just don't fill that. Put it not applicable. And sometimes not applicable is the right answer. So yeah, just reach out, man. I think that's yeah. So again, gather your documents, fill it out once, twice, thrice, and reach out wherever you get stuck.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. There are a bunch of questions asking about stuff that Beebrak has already covered in the presentation. So just a quick note, this will go up on our social media pages in a few days. So if you want to go back to something Beebrak said, you can always do that over there. That said, Beebrak, Maheen is asking about your SOP. And if you want to talk about that a little, like what you wrote in your essay.
Yeah, I mentioned my thesis statement for my application, which is me as a marketing professional and my background, my personal and professional experiences made me, I have very good people skills. I can listen to people and I am slightly smart. So my multicultural exposure to different experiences allowed me to interact and understand people from different backgrounds really well. And then I personally am passionate about education and mental health, and I was involved in volunteer work that actually worked on that. And I used my studies, like I used my learnings from a business background to advocate for those particular programs. So I was a Teach for Pakistan ambassador, and I worked at a student council where I was the president, and one of the themes was mental health. Um, so that was my personal statement. And then the statement of objectives was basically showcasing. One tip about the personal and professional, so personal statement and the statement of objectives is show, don't tell. So don't say, I have great communication skills. Tell them about your experience. So I talked to them about my exchange program in Istanbul, where it was people from all over, literally all over the world. And I was supposed to, and I was engaged with a student group called ISL, Istanbul Student Life. And I had a particular thing that I had to do. Now, to do that job well, I had to have good, solid communication skills, and not especially in English, because a lot of them did not even speak English as their first language as well. So to be able to connect with them, to be able to get my job done, that is a good representation of my communication skills. I didn't say in my essay, oh, I have great communication skills. I just talked about my experience. So just that flow has to make sense. And please, I really want to mention this as again, I've been a reviewer for Fulbright, and we're not just one or two people. There are rooms of 30 people reviewing like about 400 essays a day. Okay. And one thing that stands out with all the reviewers is like, hey, everybody has a sad story. I'm not telling you to not talk about the hardships you faced, but just the angle is, oh, मेरे साथ बहुत ज्यादती हुई. Yes, सबके साथ होती है. What is your empowerment story? that is what I would want, and any reviewer would want to focus on, is like, how did you get out of that funk? If you had family troubles, if you had went through tragic stuff, that is a powerful story. But when you read 400 stories of girls saying my family never really wanted me to study, and guys saying I had a lot of family pressure to pursue one thing, yes, it kind of gets repetitive. So unless you have a fresh angle, unless you have a good empowerment story, and I'm sorry if that kind sounds kind of mean, but you have to mix it up. You have to talk about your empowerment story. That's more powerful.
That doesn't sound mean. It's honestly spot on.
Yeah.
Another question we have. Okay, so we don't have time for all these questions, which is why I'm so sorry if we don't get to some of these. Beebrak, one of the
Um,
questions is, do you have an
I just want
LinkedIn
to
profile?
I want to quickly interject.
Yeah.
Feel free to email me. Um,
That's
yeah.
exactly what I was going to ask you, because a bunch of students have asked if they can get in touch with you. So I wanted to ask you first.
Yeah, reach out via email. And Aisha, I'm gonna leave that email. Am I supposed to give that out right now?
Do you want me to share your Gmail one or the other one?
The other one. So the
Okay,
Yahoo
the
one.
other one.
Yeah. So
I can leave it in the chat box right now.
yes. So leave
And if
so
you have an open public networking
LinkedIn.
profile on LinkedIn,
LinkedIn.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the best way to reach out to people. Honestly, guys, if you're not active on LinkedIn, be active on LinkedIn.
yeah,
That's
I
all I have to
agree. So there, perfect. If we don't get to your questions and you want to touch base with Beebrak, there are two ways to do so: LinkedIn and email. And
say.
I think we have time for just one more question. So I'm going
Right?
to kind of touch upon something that a few students have asked. So in
Mhm.
terms of the social aspects, right, for students who've never, especially for students who've never been outside Pakistan or who've only gone for short durations once or twice, what tips do you have? Like, do you think it's a difficult transition going into such a multicultural college campus? And if so, what do you think can help them make it easier?
Honestly, Aisha, it really varies from a person to person basis. And it also varies where you're going. You could go in a really white redneck area and you could be as multicultural as you want, but there you will have issues. So a few tips that I have: culture shock is inevitable. Don't be scared of it. You will get a culture shock. No matter how much you think you know Hollywood and you know the US, and living there is different. Okay. So as things as routine as having a Muslim shower in the toilet is not there. Okay. So that's one of the biggest culture shocks that you get there. Things that you might want to start working on if you already don't have those traits: empathy, non-judgment, and just knowing what to say when, especially in today when there's a very highly politically charged environment, especially in the US. Sometimes you don't have to say things, right? Be very smart and careful about what you project out into the public world. And this is just a general advice for people in our generation. Be very smart about your social media. Be very smart about how you say a thing, what kind of things you want to talk about in public spheres, especially in the US. Um, and especially about things that you feel really passionate about politically or religiously. But at the same time, don't be afraid to talk to people, have dialogues. You're there to meet people, talk to people, don't be judgmental about it. If somebody, you don't agree with somebody's viewpoint, be like, you know what? Agree to disagree, guys. And that's it. Just live and let live. कोई आपको वहाँ खा नहीं जाएगा. And honestly, yeah, you'd think that yes, there are hate crimes in the US and it is notorious for a lot of other things. But I hope that you were lucky. I was lucky enough to go to a place where never had any problems. I had great friends, people that I'm still in touch with 6 years down the line. We spent 1 year together and we're still in touch, right? Yeah, just be yourself, be smart, and be non-judgmental. That's it.
That's awesome. And just a quick point, even a lot of the red states, the college campuses there are
Yes,
progressive bubbles.
yes.
So, and they usually do
And
have mechanisms in place to deal with instances.
I was going to mention that your university will have resources. They have student bodies. They have on-campus counseling. I'm openly going to say this. I sought out on-campus counseling for a lot of things. because there's a lot of stress involved. Okay, so and by the way, the US is very nice about like exam week may free massage chal rahe the in my university, and they'll really coddle you. I was like, what? This is unheard of in Pakistan. So college campuses are predominantly very, very sensitive to the multicultural and the diverse student body that they have. So they really focus on your mental health, your actual physical health. So feel free, like really know, once you get in the US, really know your health insurance package, by the way, that's very important. And really know who is your go-to person in your university. I got a cultural exchange buddy. This was somebody that worked in the administration as a faculty. They were in the career student council, not at student council, sorry, student operations. So there were people in the career counseling department of the university, and then one of them was my buddy. So she invited me for Thanksgiving, all of that, not Thanksgiving, Christmas, and we went out on regular meetups because you're not the only exchange person over there. There are other people over there. There are many resources on your campus. Just utilize those, and always be in touch with your USEFP people and your Fulbright cohort. They're going to be your family. We went on trips together. We became great friends. We're still in touch, like I said. So yeah, just live your life. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. Have fun. I studied, but I also I opened myself up to so many experiences, things that I had always wanted to do. I went to Coldplay concerts and Ed Sheeran concerts, and I went to Disneyland and Universal Studios. And my goal was there to travel. So maybe your goal is to try as many cuisines as you want, or your goal is to do, I don't know, skydiving and bungee jumping and scuba diving, or I just wanted to check off different places. Like 18 states in 1 year is crazy. So just this is a great opportunity, guys.
Thank you, Beebrak. Those are some really encouraging parting words. Thank you for that. That was very inspirational. And just to reiterate, you can touch base with Beebrak on LinkedIn if we haven't gotten to your questions or otherwise. I'm going to spell his email address out as well for students who watch this later. It's beebrak@yahoo.com, correct?
BEEBRAK KHA. And hold on, I'm gonna do one thing just so that we have this on record. Just give me one quick second, okay?
Sure.
I'm gonna stop sharing. I'm gonna write it on a notepad, and I'm gonna share my screen so that we have that here. All right, so we have, let me know if you can see it. My email address is here, beebrakhan@yahoo.com, and then I also have my LinkedIn over here. So it's linkedin.com/in/Beebrak Gurchani. Or
Yeah,
just
you can see it.
Beebrak
This is
Gurchani on
perfect.
LinkedIn. Yeah, you can search my name. I'll pop right up. That's one of the unique things about having a unique name. But yeah, all the
Thank
best,
you
guys.
so much.
Honestly,
Yeah.
this is a great opportunity. Yeah, all the best.
Thanks so much for that, Beebrak. It was a pleasure to have you. And we hope to have you for sessions again soon, hopefully, fingers crossed, if you
I
agree.
love coming to the Fulbright community always. So I keep coming back to these things. No worries.
Perfect. Thank you.
Uh,
And for everyone else here, good luck. Please do log into our upcoming sessions. There are a bunch of workshops going on. Make use of them. And any questions for us, you can always reach out to us at lahore@educationusa.org.
all
Thanks
right.
again,
Thank you
everyone.
so
Have a
much,
good evening.
Aisha. Thank you for having me. All right.
Thanks,
Take care,
Beebrak.
everybody.
Bye.
Good luck. Allah
Bye.
Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.